Hande and I are going to talk today about coaching senior executive women, and we'll start by just introducing ourselves briefly. I'm Louise Sheppard, and I've been coaching for 30 years, and over half my clients are senior women, and I have 4 children myself and have worked all my life. Hande.
Thank you, Louise. Welcome to Praesta Executive Coaching podcast. My name is Hande. I'm Turkish and 25 years long coaching experience, and I'm a single mother. So nice to be here.
So the first topic we thought we'd talk about today when we're coaching senior women is something that we've noticed in our work and in our research also around the issues that senior women bring to coaching. And this is about being strategic. And we've noticed that there's a theme for women about getting in the weeds and needing to focus more on the big picture and also to be perceived as strategic, because there can be an issue about being perceived as strategic. So if I think about the background to that, leaders tend to become experts relatively early on in their career, and it's a very important step in their journey to acquiring knowledge. But as they get more senior, they need to move beyond being an expert and provide more vision and a roadmap for the people that work with them. And they need to take in the wider views of their stakeholders and their stakeholders' needs. But women tend not to be seen as strategic. In fact, there have been Harvard Business Review articles written on this topic. And what the Harvard Business Review recommended was that women actually signpost when they're being strategic by saying simple things like strategically speaking. So they add those in. And I was thinking about why is this? Why is this that women aren't seen as strategic? And it can be a fear of letting go of the detail. And in the past, women have often been rewarded for their perfectionism and for being good and all-encompassing at the detail. So it's actually quite hard to let go of. And what we work with women on is empowering others, setting clear guidelines, talking about the bigger picture, and setting clear parameters for what good outcomes look like. Hande, have you come across this in your coaching?
All the time.
Yeah.
And as the Harvard Business Review that you mentioned, I think years ago, Herminia Ibarra wrote it, actually based on the INSEAD's 360-degree assessment results, because in many leadership dimensions, actually women outshine the men, but actually that one, the envisioning one, the strategy one, they rated themselves lower and men rated women lower as well. So I think that brings the discussion, what is being strategic and visionary? Is it about talking about it, expressing it, or applying it? So I think the difference is a little bit the leadership differences between men and women. Women are more leaning on the collaboration. They don't want to talk about their own vision, own the vision and the strategy by themselves. They want to focus on the group's vision. So that a little bit, that toned down approach makes women look like less strategic or less visionary, not necessarily in action, but maybe in talking. So in the coaching room, we talk about and discuss this. Like, do you think you need to develop a strategic side, strategic approach, a strategic thinking, or do you need to express it more? I think there are 2 very different skills.
Absolutely.
Does it make sense to you? Yeah.
It does make sense to me. And I was thinking that I had a conversation with a senior woman this morning, and she's doing all the right things in the job. She's got a new role as country head, and she has done away days, and she's run strategic workshops. She's been doing all of these things with her team. But what she hasn't done is set out her vision. She hasn't explained it to the organization. So she's getting criticized for that. So she's ticking all the right boxes and she's doing lots of things, but she hasn't said, this is my vision. And people are picking up on that. So it's often that not that they're not doing it, but it's how they're going about letting that be known.
Yeah. And also, like, is this a reputation that women want to achieve? Like, do they set as a goal to themselves? I want to come across as strategic. I don't know. I think when I think about my clients, actually, they want to achieve something. They want to achieve the results. They want to do something, change something, rather than to be look strategic or to be look or perceived visionary.
Yes. And I think that'll probably vary from client to client as well.
Yeah.
Depending on their personal preferences.
Yeah. And that brings us to the other topic, right? So, how about being heard in the C-suite, in the exco level? Because that's a little bit related to what you're saying, how you're saying in a strategic way, right?
Absolutely. So, we do come across a lot of issues related to being seen either in the senior leadership team or at Exco. And I think that this is about how do I get myself heard? We know from research that's been done that when there are 3 women or more on the Exco, they find it easier. So often it can be tricky if there are less than 2 people in that group. And when thinking about it, I think it's about how do women manage their presence on the Exco in meetings? And that might be down to body language and how they sit and how confident they look. And it's also about what they say, how assertive they are, whether they are concise in what they're saying, whether they're comfortable with silence, whether they allow pauses, and also their ability to ask pertinent questions. And what I hear a lot is I've had feedback from the CEO that I'm not commenting on an enterprise-wide basis. I'm focusing on the function that I represent. And that's a matter of confidence as well. And also going with our intuition and being willing to share what our gut instinct is on a topic perhaps we haven't thought about before. So are we willing to give a view in the moment? And one of the things that I've noticed really helps people is if they say before they're about to say something they haven't practiced before, this is my initial reaction or this is my gut feel on it. And that then allows them to do it. So what have you noticed, Hande?
I think, as a pattern, I like to approach from the context point of view. Yes, women can definitely work on how to present themselves, how to say something, how to lean in, how to sit in the center to be heard and seen. But at the same time, how ready is the exco or the C-suite or the board ready to hear a woman is another way of looking at it. Because, there's a famous cartoon, Miss Triggs, maybe you come across to that. In the cartoon, there's only one woman on the board level and the chair says that this is a wonderful suggestion, Miss Triggs. Maybe one of the men can make it. So a lot of times we know that women feel not heard, even though when they say something clearly and they report back that when a man repeats what they're saying, then the group says, "Oh, this is a great idea. Let's discuss that." A lot of client of mine, told me this, and when I'm leading the women leadership programs, I come across to that a lot. So even though they speak, sometimes they're not heard, and it's a knife-edge situation, to be honest, because woman has the talking too much stereotype label a little bit, so they're all mindful not to be seen talking too much. But on the other hand, when there's research, especially again on the C-suite and the board, when a man and a woman talk exactly the same time, they ask who talked longer, and everybody says the female executive director talked longer. So there's this unconscious bias that is fortunately clear today. So we know that women don't want to come across talking too much, but even though they don't talk more than men, they being perceived that way. So to find the right balance to be heard, to talk enough is not easy. And when we look at the stereotypes and the boardroom expectations, women are expected to be liked, to be likable, but men are not. So the way you talk, the more airtime you use immediately affects the likability factor for women. So it's a kind of a sensitive area, being heard and talking to be heard.
Yes, I want to build on that with an example, Hande, because I've been coaching a woman in an organization who's had feedback from the CEO that he wants her to be more comfortable at disagreeing with him. So whenever he says something, and he's somebody who does make provocative statements, if you like, she will say, I agree with you, even when she doesn't. And what he really wants her to do is say, I'm not comfortable with that. I feel differently about it, and have a good argument, because he believes that having a robust debate at Exco is important, but she wants to be right, and she doesn't want to disagree with the CEO. And so we've been working on how she gets over that.
And when I'm working with my clients on that topic, I think the practical tools is starting with being prepared. Because if you're prepared, then you don't need to talk around the topic. You can immediately, directly and clearly say what you want to say. And also you want to say it in the way you want to say if you're prepared. And if you use data, again, it's not on you. It's not how controversial you are experienced. It's more the data. And also sometimes when you're not the only one in the room, helping the other woman to be heard works really well too. When she's talking, if she's interrupted, saying that, actually, Louise was saying something, can we just please hear that? So creating the space for the other woman is definitely creates the awareness in the room and helps all the women to be heard. I think that brings us to the other topic, right? The confidence topic, because sometimes in those rooms, being able to say something requires a little bit confidence.
Absolutely, it does, yes. And confidence is a theme that occurs, I think, in almost all of our clients, isn't it?
Absolutely, but definitely more and more for women, because it also becomes another gendered terminology, let's say, confidence.
Yes. So
what do you hear about from your clients?
I hear from my clients times when they feel confident, and also times when they're less confident. And we tend to look at what are the conditions for both of those things. So it might be, for example, that they're very confident talking about their area of technical expertise, but actually when they come, as I was saying earlier, to comment on other people's areas, they feel less confident. It may be a certain type of person that they're working with that undermines their confidence. I tend to work with them on where that lack of confidence comes from. So have they had situations in the past that they haven't let go of? For example, I can think of somebody who I work with who hasn't forgiven themselves for their A-level results, which are over 20 years ago. Sometimes people see themselves as much younger and less experienced than they are. So I can think of a lawyer that I worked with who still saw herself as an 18-year-old at Cambridge University who felt they didn't have much in common with the other students around them.
Yeah.
So it's where in challenging situations does our mind go back to?
I think I'm more and more focusing on this gendered approach on confidence, because confidence is a feeling about your confidence and on your competence. So when most of the times we talk about the confidence and the competence all together. So competence is your ability to do something, and confidence is how you feel about your ability doing something. So actually, competence is a sign of success, but confidence is not really. And most of the time, confidence is the sign or the way of expression of masculine leadership. And with the same stereotypical reasons, women don't want to come across arrogant or overconfident, so that they don't want to come across intimidating, which easily can be labeled. So the more the hesitation around it, the more they act modest. And unfortunately, modesty has, is perceived equal, but not lack of confidence. And there's another Harvard Business Review article says that how confidence is weaponized against women. I find it really interesting because it is based on the research again, and lack of confidence is the number one developmental feedback to women, and mostly to women. Do you see any male clients who wants to develop their confidence? I think very rare for my case.
Well, actually, I would say that it's pretty equal for me in my.
Oh, okay.
So, but I find that men express their confidence in different ways. Very often they don't even use the word confidence. They talk about self-doubt. And what I notice is that when women come to coaching, very often in what we call the chemistry sessions, the initial meeting when they're choosing a coach, they'll talk about their lack of confidence in specific areas. Whereas with male clients, they'll wait, or in fact, it'll be me that brings it up 2 or 3 sessions in. I'll say, do you have some self-doubt? And they'll say yes. So I think women carry their confidence in a different way. But personally, I believe that both men and women have confidence issues.
You're right. The self-doubt is maybe even something healthy, not as a development area, but healthy. When you take up a big role, when you take up the responsibility of a lot of people or a big budget or the future of a company, having a little bit doubt is healthy, isn't it? Rather than feeling totally confident about taking all those decisions, which is going to impact the future of people and the company. But I think the more I'm hearing is the feedback from the company about the female executives to develop is the way they express their opinions and competencies. So the more we talk about in the coaching room, again, like, do you want to work on the competence around these topics, or do you want to work on how you come across confident? And if you want to come across confident, the skills are there. It starts with stand tall to fake it until you make it. So there are many small techniques to change a behavior to express yourself. But at the same time, I like to, I invite them to work on their confidence to bring their authentic self into the picture rather than showing or expressing a confidence like men, because women's confidence is different. So to work on the confidence to bring their authentic way of presenting themselves is another way of developing confidence, I believe.
Yeah. I agree with you. And I would add that I'm sure we both work with people on their limiting self-beliefs. So what beliefs are they holding about themselves as well? And sometimes I think it can be useful for us to identify whether there are any beliefs that are limiting their ability to act and to appear competent. I see it like a wall, and occasionally there are some bricks that have got cracks in, and it's important to take that brick out and replace it with a healthy brick. For example, if I believe I have to hold all the answers, or I always have to have something to say about something, occasionally I won't have. So that's not helping me as a belief. So actually I might want to replace that brick with, sometimes I'm going to be dealing with the unknown. And that will make it a healthier wall, if you like, of my confidence.
Yeah, totally agree.
So this brings us on now to using your confidence, in fact, to ensure that you get recognition as a woman. And one of the things that we see in our work is that women sometimes feel that it's boasting or bragging or inappropriate or unnecessary to talk about what they're doing and what they're achieving in organizations. And when they feel like that, it impacts them, but it also impacts their team, and it can impact the remuneration package that they get.
Of course.
So this is something that we're dealing with. And often the belief beneath that is, if I do a good job and I work hard, I will be noticed. And so they're not actually working to be noticed. And it's important to let key stakeholders know what you're doing, what your vision is, what your achievements are. And in reality, to clarify what your role is in the business, what you're adding to it and what your team are adding. And everyone benefits from that. And there are many ways of doing this, through conversations, through emails, newsletters, through passing on feedback, positive feedback that you can get, or from doing town halls. But often women shy away from that. And I just wanted to take that point about remuneration, because in the last few weeks, I spent a couple of sessions talking with clients about how can they get fairly rewarded in the organisation. And they've been disappointed with what they've been allocated in terms of reward. And in one case, this was because the individual and the organisation rewards what you earn through your clients. But actually, she has got a particular skill and knowledge, and all types of groups in the organisation have been using that knowledge. But their client rewards, if you like, haven't been allocated to her. So she feels under-remunerated. I wondered if you come across that, Hande, where women aren't being noticed enough because they're not putting themselves forward, and sometimes aren't being remunerated as much as others.
Definitely. And so I think when I talk about the self-blockers that women actually are using for other reasons, is one of them we call the Tiara syndrome, which is, they expect to be noticed and rewarded rather than raising the hand and asking for that, when men have no problem for doing that, but women don't like doing it. So they kind of expect someone to notice them and reward them. And actually, they feel it's more valuable when this happened that way. And if we look at the social aspects of it, social and historical aspects of it, again, the female role in the society, still with the rituals, they're expecting to be proposed to marry, right? Or to be danced. So there's the woman, the role of the female in the society is not to get out and ask for things, demand for things, but waiting for that kindly and nicely. So this is one reason. And the other one is again, it comes to the likability. The Lean In book, you remember, from Sheryl Sandberg, it just refers the research that when a man becomes successful, actually everybody likes him more. The family, the friends, the colleagues. And when woman becomes more successful, actually they like her less. So accepting the reward publicly, it can be any recognition. It's dangerous for women because the cost is not being liked, and it's a big and high cost to pay. Why would we have that? So a lot of women kind of downplay and not taking the recognition publicly, prefer it to receive it on the other, on the side, and downplay, so to avoid the envy. So I understand it, but we work on it in the coaching room heavily as well, because when they think about actually their daughters or their next generation that they're raising in the organization, and when they think like, would you like them to do it? They definitely don't want it. And they understand that they need to be the change, the role model, to show them how to accept the recognition, as well as to be able to challenge or raise your voice when things are not fair, but also accepting the recognition is also part of the leadership. Yes. So this is kind of, I work on that kind of to externalizing what they're experiencing gives a different perspective in coaching most of the times.
Yes. And actually, sadly, I'd add to what you're saying, because sadly, quite a few women I coach say they don't even feel they can talk about or complain about their remuneration within their relationships at home, where they have the primary career role, if you like, and they don't get to upset their partners or husbands who earn less than them. So it's not just in the workplace where they feel unable to do that, but also at home.
And it's coming from the whole education system. When you look at all the all the research in the education system, where the boys are recognized to raise their hand, to take up their voice, and to speak, the girls are recognized for waiting their line and waiting to be asked rather than raising their hands and racing to speak. So I think it's deeply rooted in the education system as well.
Yeah, in society. So that brings us nicely on to thinking and talking about how women and men are perceived, and when people act differently to the stereotypes we have of them in society. So, Hande, what's your take on that?
I think the recent readings and the research that I'm reading more and more focuses on the main roles of women and men, or female or male stereotypes. And the female stereotype, the society expects women to be communal. So the kind of the nurturing and kindness, warmth, and not being selfish and giving. So the communal side is the main expectation, where the society expects men to show agency. So determination, decisiveness, assertion, to push to change. So we know that when both genders act outside of their stereotypes, there's a reaction from the society. Unfortunately, when men act communal, they get reward or they get the recognition. But when women act out of the stereotype, actually they get a punishment. They get a negative reaction. So that's a very important unconscious bias that we need to bring to conscious. So the clients, so the senior female executives or the male executives can make better choices, can make better decisions. And as I said earlier, in the boardrooms or in the senior decision tables, women are expected to be likable where men are not. So that's something to manage. You can challenge people to a certain level. If you lose the likability, your seat is in danger as well. So that balance is, even though it doesn't feel fair, fairness is not something we're looking for. I think we need to keep in mind how to manage it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when we're coaching anyone, men or women, then we can be asking, can't we, as coaches, would you be saying that if it was a man, or would you be saying that if it's a woman?
Exactly.
That ourselves. And as leaders out there, male and female leaders, I think they should be doing that.
And also when we're thinking about our leadership styles, because we don't have one leadership style we bring in early 30s and keep it until the end. No, we change it all the time by new learnings, by new changes in the world as well. So it's important to keep in mind that you need to meet the expectations of the society to be able to liked. And once you're liked, once you have the bond, once you build the trust, then you can go out of it and try to make some changes as well. So it doesn't mean that this is a big limitation. No, it just shows us the doors to enter to make a change rather than do's and don'ts.
Yeah, great. Okay, so that brings us on to our sixth topic, which is creating boundaries between work and home life and how to manage our energy levels and our well-being. And this topic is important for men and for women. And we find that a lot of senior women bring it to us. Often our women that we're coaching have responsibilities outside of work, and that might be for children. It might be for aging parents. We hear now about the sandwich generation who have both people who are dependent on them as children and elderly relatives, and they're perpetually juggling their business demands and their other responsibilities. And it's important for all of us to be clear about what our boundaries are. You know, what are the things that are unacceptable for us, and what's unacceptable to you, Hande, might be quite different to what's acceptable or not acceptable to me. So it's a very personal thing, but it's something that people want to tease out and explore through the coaching. And it's important as well to think about how can we manage our energy levels and well-being. To ask ourselves questions: when are we at our best? What time of day? When do we want to do our best work? How do we refresh ourselves? How do we replenish ourselves? How do we tend to cope under pressure? And when we are under pressure, and most of us are under pressure at certain times, what safety measures can we put in place? What helps us? So just from a personal basis, I know, for example, that meditation helps me. Reading novels, doing yoga, walking, switching off my phone sometimes at weekends, and also taking a decent summer holiday break. Those are all things that work for me, and different things will work for different people. I don't mind working at weekends sometimes, and in terms of my relationship, then that's fine, because my husband's a lawyer and he has to work at weekends sometimes. But when the children were little, we had a rule that we didn't work until Sunday evenings, and that worked for us as a couple, and different people will have different needs around it. There was just one other thing I wanted to add on this, and that's that women who don't have major responsibilities in terms of aging parents or children can still find it difficult to switch off, and also bring this to coaching. And they talk about the importance of having perspective, and you can sometimes find that if you don't have other things that you have to do, it's still difficult to set boundaries, and work can become too important to you and take over too much of your life anyway.
Yeah, I think my family and marriage therapy training affects me a lot on this topic, to be honest. I kind of approach from a way, there's no right or wrong, good or bad. We just ask the question, does it work for you, or does it work against you? So from a personal experience, when we start to read our emails from the smartphones, it took a huge stress off from my shoulders. Believe me, because I was always nervous to go back to home or to my laptop to check my emails. I didn't notice that this was a stress, but when I started to look at my emails on the beach, it was, I check it, there's nothing important, so I can put it aside and I can relax. So there's no one right way of doing it, obviously. On the other hand, I'm working at INSEAD Business School at the same time, and having the opportunity to work with so many people from very different cultures. And I think the COVID research and that experience both shows that without talking about the cultural differences, the woman, the house responsibilities and the family responsibilities are mostly majority on women. So, and that actually damaged the development of the female leadership in the last 5 years. So there were some slow progress, but unfortunately we got some damage. A lot of women left their careers, left their work, because it was not possible to have the balance for the work and the family under the COVID times. Now we're coming back, and the good part, there's a big awareness on that, but still we know that it's mostly on women. And I come across to conversations in the group coaching settings. Sometimes there's only one woman in the room and there are few men. And when they talk about the elderly parent caring, men are asking, what about your husband? Like, isn't he helping? And you hear the woman, no, he has other things to do. He has his own priorities. So we don't expect, we try to kind of feel the whole weight on our shoulders to take care of the kids and the parents most of the time. So I think it's helpful. I find it helpful to discuss about the partnership. What does partnership mean to them? How do they let their partners to take on the responsibility and help them? How does it feel to say that I cannot do it all and I need your help on this? Sometimes, just like, men, difficult to show weakness, it's difficult for a woman to show weakness on this part as well. And it's a kind of a matter of pride. I don't need this. I can do it all. But it reminds me that New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern's left the job. Actually, BBC had the headline, "Can Women Really Have It All?" So I think this was a big awakening moment for all of us, that the whole world is still seeing for a woman to have a senior, significant career equals to wanting it all or having it all. I think we need to work together to change that perception first, to be able to find the balance at work and at home.
Yeah. And I'm noticing that more male clients are also bringing through the conversations to coaching. How can I ensure that I have a good balance between my work and home life, and that the younger men, if you like, are concerned about that. And I hadn't, I'm noticing that particularly in the last few years, which is a great.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And this brings us to the last topic, which is the future, actually. How are we hoping to see the future of these topics? Do we want them to go away? Do we want to have the same issues? And that kind of, I'm going to start with my fear, which is the glass cliff, which is called these days. Yes, there are more opportunities for women to take up the leadership roles, but sometimes we understand that, Christine Lagarde nicely say that, I observe that the leadership roles or the significant roles are given to women when things get tough and when they need to face the difficulty and focus on restoring the situation and clean the mess. So which is the definition of the glass cliff? Like being called into a leadership role when it's to set up to fail, when it's almost impossible to achieve. And because of the glass ceiling, we know that the opportunity is rare. We jump on it, but actually, are we jumping out of the cliff by doing that? So for the future, I think we need to bring this to awareness so we can have a safe future for the younger generation to take up the leadership roles.
Well, I think that we do need to be aware of that, and we need to ask ourselves when we're criticizing female leaders, would I be criticizing in exactly the same way if it was a man? So I think all of us need to be asking that. But I do think that there are more opportunities now for women, and that there's been a real progression in terms of getting a number of women onto boards in particular, boards, executive committees. So that's good to see, and that they're having an influence there, but more can be done.
Yeah. So definitely my hope for the future is for the next generation to dare to be out of the stereotypes and try different things and help each other. More than that, for both men and women, hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder, to help each other for the difficulties that their genders and the stereotype issues are bringing them. So I hope we're gonna not need to coach people on these topics.
Yeah, that would be a great result.
Yeah. Thank you. It was lovely, Louise.
Good to work with you.
It was great talking to you, as always.
And you.